What's going on, everyone? So Boyan Bogdanovic was a player that many teams were trying to acquire. The Utah Jazz ultimately sent him to Detroit for what many thought was undervalued and a bag of peanuts compared to what other teams were rumored to have offered. And then you saw teams try to make a push for Boyan Bogdanovic for Detroit. Detroit signed him to a new contract, 2 years, and they said, look, we don't necessarily want to trade him, but we'd be open to trade him if the right deal came along. And for the longest time, that deal was very high. Detroit's asking price was not realistic for Boyan. I mean, at some cases, they wanted like 2 firsts for him and all kinds of stuff. Ultimately, he ended up not getting traded, but teams still really value him and really want him. And it makes a lot of sense, right? He's like a 6'7", 6'8", just dead-eye shooter. And most teams could use that. Last season, this is a guy that was absolute money. He shot 48, almost 49% from the field total. From three-point range, he shot 41, almost 42% on 6 attempts per game, and was a 53.9% from two-point range and had an EFG of 57%. He also averaged just under 22 points per game. He also had just under 3 assists and 4 rebounds. This is a guy that can absolutely impact a roster and a team. Now, defensively, he's not going to provide much, but he is a guy that can absolutely be a bucket getter, a guy that can just shoot the lights out for you and really make an impact. So it makes sense that a lot of teams would be wanting Boyan Bogdanovic, and based on reports, there are several teams that are heavily monitoring Boyan and will continue to monitor him throughout the course of the season, right? It's very possible that Detroit may want to get something in return for Boyan, because is Boyan going to want to stay with Detroit long term? Maybe, maybe not. But you'd imagine that he's going to want to go to a contender at some point. And one of the teams that is heavily monitoring him is the Lakers. So the Lakers tried vehemently to try to acquire Boyan Bogdanovic. And there was a lot of talk about them making a big push at the trade deadline. Ultimately, it never ended up happening. Now, Boyan last year made a lot more sense for the Lakers than this year, just because the Lakers didn't really have, one, they lacked shooting desperately. 2, they didn't have a lot of size out on the perimeter. And yes, Boyan isn't a guy that's going to really just lock down opposing teams' players or anything like that. But he isn't as bad defensively as people try to make him out to be. Again, he's not a good defender by any means, but he is actually very good at kind of funneling the offensive player to the big man. That's why you got to remember, Joe Ingles and Boyan Bogdanovic were the 2 wing players for the Utah Jazz, and Utah were very good defensively. And it's because they had an elite shot blocker in Rudy Gobert, who you just needed Boyan not to necessarily defend, but use his length, put his hands up, and try to, deter shots, but also just funnel to Rudy. Well, the Lakers, they have Anthony Davis, so you could kind of put him in the same defensive sets and just allow him to kind of funnel. He's a vet guy who has experience. He's hit big shots in big moments. He's not afraid of the moment. He's been in playoff runs. He's been in matchups. This is a guy that could really help the Lakers, especially last year. The Lakers could have used him badly last year, even after all the trade acquisitions and stuff like that. Like, Boyan could have helped a lot. Even in that Denver series, I think he would have helped a lot. But nonetheless, they didn't end up getting him. This year, though, he doesn't make as much sense. Right now, look, if the Lakers are really planning on kind of molding Austin Reeves into their point guard of the future, and they're looking to move off of D'Lo, which has been heavily rumored, then maybe Boyan makes a little more sense. Obviously, you're not going to start him, but as like a guy who could give you 20 on any given night off the bench and help you just kind of win more games than you might have otherwise, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. If you were to trade D'Lo and turn Austin Reeves into your point guard, because what that would do is that would kind of allow some of the guys that are going to play the 3 and the 4 now play the 2 guard. and kind of balance out your roster more. Because Boyan, you're probably playing at the 3 or maybe the 4 occasionally, but more likely than not, you're playing him at the 3. So let's say you trade D'Lo, right? Well, now you have Austin Reeves at the point guard. Maybe you start Taurean Prince at the 2. That frees up a spot there. And then you have Max Christie, who can be the backup, right? Then you could go, and all you have to do is make room for like Rui and Vando. But you could have those guys kind of play the 4 at times. And then you basically just have like Boyan, Vando, and Rui kind of alternating the 3 and the 4 spot behind LeBron. And Vando probably is the one that starts, would be my guess, right? So you go like, say, Reeves, Prince, Vando, LeBron, and AD. Now, I know Taurean Prince has played the 3 and the 4 for pretty much most, if not all of his career, but he is capable of playing the 2 guard. He's 6'7" in size. He's got good size for the 2 guard. The 2 and the 3 is not different at all. Like, his role would still be the same as a 2 guard as it would be the 3 guard. And he's probably going to have to play 2 guard regardless, just because of how tight and how many players we have at the 3 and the 4. But if you unload D'Lo, you have Reeves as now your starting point guard, then that kind of allows you to kind of adjust guys. I think Cam Reddish is probably going to be the odd man out, just me personally. I think it kind of boils down to Max Christie and Cam Reddish, but the Lakers seem to be higher on Max Christie. And so if that's the case and you end up trading D'Lo, and I'm not even saying you necessarily trade D'Lo for Boyan. I'm saying if you unload him and you end up making some other move to acquire Boyan, or maybe you do trade D'Lo, right? Then you could do something like that. I also wouldn't hate if the Lakers worked out a deal to get Alec Burke and Boyan. Alec Burke, shooting guard, 6'6", good size, good length, shot 43% from 3 last season. Guy that could be a two-way player, could come off the bench, especially if you end up moving Reeves to the point, right? You could even start Alec Burke at the 2 if you wanted to, right? Like if you did want Taurean Prince to primarily play the 3 and the 4, you could have Alec kind of be your starting 2 guard, right? And have him and then Reeves with LeBron, AD, and Vando. Like, that could be pretty solid. And now you got another shooter. If you could get both of these guys, that would be massive. Because that gives you 2 40+% three-point shooters to add to D'Lo, who shot just under 42%. Austin Reeves, who shoots 40%. You have Taurean Prince, who can shoot 38%. Gabe Vincent has shot 38% in the past. And in the playoffs, he did that. Hopefully, that's kind of the trend, and he doesn't shoot like, what was it, 29% or something like that from 3 last year, right? So now you start looking at it, even Max Christie shot just under 42% from 3, although it was a very small sample size. But you start putting all these shooters, it's like the Lakers might actually be a very good three-point shooting team. Now, it's going to come down to the asking price. It's going to come down to like need and fit, and like, you know, is it, like, are the Lakers still terrible shooting the 3 ball? Right? Like, if that's the case, then maybe they do look at a Boyan and Alec Burke, or even if they don't look at Boyan and Alec Burke, they look at just a Boyan, right? To kind of bring another shooter if they're like, yeah, we kind of need some shooting. And, you know, it gives you a guy, because look, the Lakers are in win now mode, right? I get that he's 34. I get some people are looking at it like, you know, I don't want another old guy or whatever, but the Lakers are trying to win this year. Right? So Boyan absolutely helps you win this year. Now, again, this is assuming the Lakers already got the center locked up, this is assuming everything, right? And they just look at it as like, hey, we want to move Reeves to the point, and we need some shooting. You could do worse than a 20-point per game guy, right? That can shoot the ball very efficiently, very effectively. That can play off of LeBron, play off of Austin Reeves. Like, Boyan, I definitely think could help this Lakers roster. It just depends on what the Lakers end up moving off of, right? Because if you end up, Austin Reeves, D'Lo, you could basically just swap D'Lo and Boyan. Like, if you're doing that, then I think it could work, right? But if you're kind of like packaging guys together, right, to try to go get him, then I don't necessarily know how well that would work. So the only real way that I see that makes sense would be to trade D'Lo for him. But I'd want to kind of try to get more than just Boyan. But I don't know. I mean, it if you could make it work and you don't have to give up a first or anything, like if you're doing, say, D'Lo and a second for Boyan, cool, right? Or if you're working at a 3-team deal to where you land Boyan, cool, right? And then you kind of just figure it out, right? Maybe you even have him play, backup too, right? And kind of go that route. Because again, all he'd be doing is just being a shooter. And in today's NBA, it's a lot of positionlessness anyway, right? Like he might just on paper be the starting two, but if you have like, a bunch of big like Prince and LeBron and all these guys, like it's just like, okay, on paper he's the two, but really he's just a guy that's out there and he's guarding this guy who's the 4 rather than, Klay Thompson or something like that, right? Like you can make it work. I don't think that the Lakers are going to trade for him at any point. I just don't. But I wouldn't hate it. If the Lakers do, like if the Lakers look at it and they're like, man, we could use another scorer. We could use some shooting. Like we kind of, like if the Lakers kind of feel like they need more of a scoring punch, which I don't think will be the issue with Austin Reeves, Rui, D'Lo, LeBron, and AD. I think that they'll handle more than enough scoring. But if it does look like, hey, we could use another like consistent, like if D'Lo isn't very consistent or, Reeves kind of regresses a little bit, then maybe they kind of look at like, okay, well, let's go get a guy like Boyan who might be cheap. Think that could be a possibility. But if you're going to go get a guy like Boyan, personally, I'd rather just go get, at that point, like, is like a DeMar DeRozan available or something? Because I think, like, yeah, he's not going to give you the shooting, but he'll give you a scorer and closer. I don't know. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Would you want Boyan? Would you not? Would you be game for Boyan if they ended up trading him at some point, for trading for him at some point? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.